This is the kind of footage you usually see with FPV drones. Normally, you'd use larger 5-inch drones with an action cam for this. I'm interested in something else. How small can you shrink a digital drone without ruining the footage? I tried to build the smallest and lightest digital FPV drone I could. Spoiler, it was much harder than I expected. Will it pass the durability test? Look, it doesn't really make practical sense to shrink this thing any further. I just want to see how much smaller I can make it. Like, really small. So small I could basically slip it into my pocket. But to get that small, everything has to get smaller. Those huge motors, that frame, just everything. But if I want the smallest drone, I need the smallest parts. So first thing, I went hunting for them. And yeah, I found some good stuff. These are the smallest parts I could track down for a build like this. We've got a mini flight controller, the tiniest brushless motors, the smallest 4K video system I could find, a small high voltage LiPo, and a selection of the smallest props. King was kind enough to provide the motors, the flight controller, and a few props to make this project happen. And if you want to build this thing yourself, I've got more info and a coupon code at the end of the video. Okay, so I'd had this whole project in my head for months. Then, once I started, it was one problem after another. But first, I measure everything. I make a rough hand sketch, drop the parts I need into my PC, and design the frame around the components. Okay, but to get even smaller than this, there's basically only one thing left. The motors have to move closer together. The problem, if I bring the motors together in this layout, they mostly push the air straight into the board. The only thing that makes sense is a pusher setup, so I flip them 180 degrees and move them in tighter. Now they push the air straight down, not into the board anymore. I came up with this sandwich design, video transmitter on top, flight controller on the bottom, and the frame in between. It's secured left and right with 2 screws, but I'm still missing the most important thing, the one that takes up the most space, the battery. The problem is, I don't really see a good spot for the battery. If I put it underneath, it collides with the propellers. If I mount it on top, the center of gravity shifts, and the drone gets unstable. At this point, I decided to just start over and rethink it. The only solution? I have to ditch the sandwich design and mount the video transmitter and the flight controller on top. That's the only way I get enough space underneath to mount the battery between the frame and the propellers. With what I've learned, I'm now laying out all the components in the right spots. I don't just want to build a small drone, but the smallest one. I'm pushing it to the extreme and moving the motors even closer, so close the propellers overlap and actually touch. That's obviously going to cause problems. The motors won't stay in sync, not like a tandem helicopter does. To keep them from touching, I'm basically building a little platform for 2 of the 4 motors. That way, the motors sit at different heights. Check out these tiny little motors. They are the smallest brushless motors ever made. Here's a quick comparison with a 2207 motor from a 5-inch FPV drone. In terms of weight, it's pretty crazy. It's hard to believe how much power something so small can generate. And these motors rotate at around 130,000 RPM. For the smallest drone, I also need the smallest props. I narrowed it down to Gemfan, King, and HQ prop. The props have different pitch and a different number of blades. With these tiny motors, I'm not sure which combo works best. They have high RPM, but less torque. To figure out which prop works best, I built a small, simple, but effective test stand. It uses a load cell that I read with an ESP32. Then I plot the results, the thrust the motor gets with each prop in my own app. And there you go, that's the winner. These props make the most thrust, but they also pull the most current. If If you want to see more prop benchmark stuff in the future, now's a good time to subscribe. And please let me know if you are interested in the Benchmark app. Comment with Benchmark now. And that, folks, is the first version I'd call, like, actually serious. The question is, will version 1 fly right away, or did I screw it up? 'Cause, yeah, I'm getting a bit of deja vu from my low-budget FPV long-range build about a year ago. Nope, that didn't work. Nope, that's not it either. You can't imagine how happy I was that it even lifted off at all. But do you hear that motor noise? That does not sound right. I'm gonna ignore the takeoff issue for now. I'll fix that later. What matters more is the motor sound, and I know that sound. I don't have a better word for it than oscillating. A lot of flight controllers in drones have a built-in black box. Luckily, this one does too. The black box logs all the data from the drone, position voltage, motor RPM, and so on. Basically, it's a little chip everything flows into and gets stored. I can pull those logs, drop them into a tool, and analyze them. That's how I tune the drone. There are two main things to dial in. The first thing are the filters, the accelerometer data. You know, all the sensor stuff needs to be filtered. What I care about is the drone's actual movement, not like vibrations. The second thing is the PID control. That's how hard the flight controller reacts to attitude changes and to your stick inputs. Before I can do the final flight, I've got to fix the launch problem. Right now the drone sits on its propellers. The moment the motors spin up, they start pushing and we get a runaway takeoff. Normally you'd use a little launch platform, but the whole underside doesn't really let me rest it on anything, so that's out. There's something called toss launch, basically a hand throw. I disabled PID at idle so it doesn't freak out, and this helped a lot when arming the drone. But the thing is, toss launch doesn't really work indoors, because you need a lot of space. But on a smooth floor, I can still get a clean launch if I lift off fast enough. Toss launch is super difficult with something like this. But this is the best I could do. But the best start is simply from a smooth surface.
Alter, geh weg! Alter!
Yes, that was a 5-inch drone against my smallest DJI O4 drone, and almost nothing was damaged. A rubber buffer flew off and a propeller bent, but the 3D printed frame is intact, as is everything else. I would say it passed the durability test. Months ago, when the idea popped into my head to see how small I could build an FPV drone, I honestly didn't think it would fly well at all. I expected it to be super unstable, maybe lift off for a moment and be almost impossible to control. But after tuning, it flies great. And yeah, it actually fits in a pocket. Even if I probably wouldn't take it on a hike, it's so much smaller than what you can buy off the shelf. So I'd say the goal's met. This project also showed me I could probably push the design even more. Go smaller at the cost of performance. But that's for another video. Definitely check out my Patreon. I'll link all the STL files, the drone's config file, an assembly guide, and a bunch more. And you'll find plenty of behind-the-scenes stuff there going forward. How I shape the story, how I shoot, and so on. And hey, Huge thanks to Meps King for providing the parts to build this ridiculously small drone. If you want to build one too, check out their store, and with my code, you'll get an extra 10% off. See you in the next video.